A wealthy teenager mocks Elon Musk at a luxury car showroom, laughing at his modest appearance. Moments later, the world-famous entrepreneur stuns everyone when he quietly purchases every luxury vehicle in sight. But what happens next takes an unexpected and emotional turn, leaving everyone present speechless. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. It was a breezy afternoon in Beverly Hills, California, in the spring of 2023. Inside an ultra-modern, glass-walled luxury car showroom on Rodeo Drive, a young man named Carter Blake was having the time of his life. At just 19 years old, Carter was the son of a prominent real estate mogul, and his lifestyle reflected it. He had everything money could buy: designer clothes, private jets, and a brand new sports car parked outside. But despite his wealth, Carter was known for his arrogance and lack of empathy. As Carter strutted through the showroom, loudly boasting about his wealth to a few friends, his attention was drawn to a quiet man who had just walked in. Dressed in a simple black t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers, the man seemed out of place amid the polished cars and glittering chandeliers. Carter smirked, leaned closer to his friends, and said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Looks like someone got lost on their way to a used car lot." The man, who appeared to be in his early 50s, didn't react. He walked calmly past Carter, examining a sleek black Lamborghini, his fingers grazing the flawless finish as if deep in thought. This irritated Carter, who followed him and continued making snide comments. "Hey, buddy, these cars cost more than your entire wardrobe. You sure you're in the right place?" Unbeknownst to Carter, the quiet man was none other than Elon Musk, the billionaire entrepreneur and CEO of Tesla, SpaceX, and several other groundbreaking companies. Elon was in town for a business meeting and had stopped by the showroom on a whim, not to show off, but to admire the craftsmanship of the vehicles. The staff recognized him instantly but kept their composure, knowing how much Elon valued his privacy. Ignoring Carter's taunts, Elon asked a salesperson about the price of a limited edition Bugatti. His calm and polite demeanor starkly contrasted with Carter's loud bravado, drawing the attention of other customers. "Oh, come on," Carter interrupted, laughing. "You can't seriously afford that. Don't waste their time." At that moment, something shifted. Elon turned to face Carter, his kind yet piercing eyes locking onto the teenager's smirk. "You're right," he said softly. "I probably don't need just one car." Then, with a wave of his hand, he addressed the salesperson. "I'll take them all. Every car on the floor." The room fell silent, and Carter's face turned a deep shade of red. He froze, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Elon handed over his credit card without hesitation, and within moments, the showroom buzzed with activity as the paperwork began. Carter's friends, sensing the tension, quietly backed away, leaving him alone in the middle of the spectacle. But this wasn't the end of the story. As the cars were being prepped for delivery, Elon approached Carter, who stood frozen near the entrance. What he said next would change Carter's life forever. Elon approached Carter with a calm but piercing gaze. For a moment, Carter didn't know what to do. He wasn't used to being the one caught off guard. There was something about Elon's quiet confidence that made him feel small, like all the bravado he carried around was just a mask he'd been forced to wear. "You seem to have it all figured out," Elon said, his voice steady yet kind. "But let me tell you something. It's not about the cars, the money, or the status. Those things can disappear in the blink of an eye. What matters is how you treat people, especially the ones who don't seem to matter to you." Carter scoffed, though his voice faltered. "And what would you know about me? You don't even know my name." Elon smiled faintly, his expression unreadable. "You're right. I don't know you. But I see you. I see the kid behind the noise, trying so hard to prove something to the world. Let me tell you, what the world thinks of you doesn't matter nearly as much as you think it does. But how you make people feel, that stays with them." The word struck Carter harder than he expected. For years, he'd lived in the shadow of his father's success, constantly being told that to win respect, he needed to outshine everyone. But standing here in front of a man who could effortlessly buy every car in the showroom without batting an eye, Carter suddenly felt hollow. Before Carter could respond, Elon turned to the salesperson and said, "Actually, I'd like to give away 2 of these cars." The entire room grew silent again. Elon pointed toward the far corner, where a young valet stood nervously shifting his weight. "One for him." And the other, he looked back at Carter, his gaze softening, "for you. But on one condition." Carter stared, speechless, as Elon leaned in and said, "Use it as a reminder to be better. Not just for yourself, but for others." Stunned, Carter stammered, "Why? Why would you do that for me?" "Because I believe people can change," Elon Musk said simply. "And I think you might need a reminder that kindness will take you further than arrogance ever will." The words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. For the first time in his life, Carter didn't have a witty comeback. Something inside him shifted, though he wasn't quite ready to admit it yet. Elon handed the keys to the stunned valet, who couldn't stop thanking him, tears welling up in his eyes. Then he walked back toward Carter, placing another set of keys in his hand. "Don't let this be the only good thing you do today or tomorrow. Make it count," Elon said. As Elon walked out of the showroom, leaving a stunned crowd in his wake, Carter stood there gripping the keys tightly, his mind racing. For the first time, he felt something other than pride or bravado. He felt something real. And for the first time, he wondered, was there more to life than just winning? The answer, he realized, was waiting for him to discover. Carter stood frozen as Elon disappeared out the door, the key still warm in his trembling hands. His mind was a storm of confusion, disbelief, and something he couldn't quite name. The weight of Elon's words lingered, forcing him to confront emotions he'd buried deep beneath layers of entitlement. The valet, a young man named Ethan, walked over hesitantly, his eyes shining with gratitude and disbelief. I don't even know how to thank him," Ethan stammered, holding his own set of keys like they were fragile glass. "Do you think he knows what this means to someone like me?" Carter looked at Ethan, noticing him for the first time. His uniform was slightly frayed, his shoes worn at the edges. He had the look of someone who was used to being overlooked. A strange ache stirred in Carter's chest. "I think he does," Carter said quietly, surprising himself. Ethan smiled, his expression a mix of joy and disbelief. "I'm going to give my mom a ride in this car tonight. She's always dreamed of riding in a car like this. It's unbelievable." Carter felt his throat tighten. The idea of someone cherishing a simple ride in a luxury car struck a chord. He'd taken so much for granted his whole life. For him, a car was just another possession, a symbol of status. But for Ethan, it was a dream come true. Later that night, Carter found himself driving the car Elon had gifted him. The engine purred beneath him like a wild animal, but instead of the usual thrill he expected from such a machine, he felt empty. The words Elon had said kept echoing in his mind, "How you make people feel, that stays with them." He pulled into his family's sprawling mansion, the lights glowing brightly against the night sky. Inside, the house was just as grand as always, but for the first time, it felt cold. His father, James Blake, was sitting in the leather armchair by the fireplace, sipping a glass of expensive scotch. "Nice car," James said with a smirk, glancing at the driveway through the window. "I hope you made a statement when you bought it." Carter hesitated, gripping the keys in his pocket. "Actually, it was a gift," he said slowly. James raised an eyebrow. "A gift? From who?" "Elon Musk," Carter replied, expecting disbelief or laughter. Instead, his father froze, his expression darkening. "Elon Musk?" James repeated, his tone sharper now. "You met Elon Musk?" Carter nodded, confused by his father's reaction. "Yeah. Why? Do you know him?" James didn't answer immediately. He leaned back in his chair, staring into the fire. "I knew him once," he said finally, his voice quieter than Carter had ever heard it. "A long time ago." The revelation hit Carter like a bolt of lightning. "What do you mean you knew him?" James didn't answer right away. His gaze was distant, as if he were seeing something from a past he'd tried to forget. "We grew up in the same neighborhood, back when I didn't have all this." He gestured vaguely at the luxurious room around them, back when life was simpler. Carter couldn't believe what he was hearing. His father, the untouchable James Blake, had once lived a life without wealth. "What happened?" Carter asked, his voice softer now. James sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "He was always the better man. Even when we had nothing, Elon would give away whatever little he had if it meant helping someone else. I was different. I was ambitious, ruthless, and eventually, we went our separate ways." The confession left Carter stunned. His father had never spoken about his past before, let alone with such vulnerability. "Does he know?" Carter asked. "Does he know who you are now?" James shook his head. "I doubt it. And even if he did, it wouldn't matter to him. He's not the kind of man who cares about things like that." As the fire crackled in the silence, Carter realized how little he truly knew about his father and how much Elon's words had meant. It wasn't just about money or power. It was about the choices you made and the impact you left on the people around you. For the first time in his life, Carter felt the pull of something deeper than wealth. Carter couldn't let the moment slip away. He had to find Elon Musk. That night, Carter couldn't sleep. He lay in his enormous bed, staring at the high ceiling, his mind racing. Elon's words replayed over and over, intertwining with his father's unexpected confession. He had always seen his father as an untouchable figure, a man who thrived on power, who never flinched or faltered. But now, cracks were appearing in that image. He sat up suddenly, the stillness of the night amplifying the thudding of his heart. "Why would Elon just walk away from my dad?" he muttered to himself. "Why would my dad let someone like that slip out of his life?" Before he could second-guess himself, Carter grabbed his phone and began searching. He combed through endless interviews, articles, and fan pages trying to find out more about Elon. It didn't take long to uncover a pattern. Elon wasn't just admired for his achievements, he was revered for his humanity. Stories of him working tirelessly to revolutionize industries, donating millions to environmental causes, and treating employees with empathy painted a picture of someone who had chosen innovation and kindness over everything else. But amidst all the stories, one caught Carter's attention. A small, obscure article from years ago mentioned that Elon had once supported a community center in a struggling neighborhood. It was vague, but something about it felt important. Carter had to know more. The next morning, he skipped breakfast and drove the car Elon had given him straight to his father's office. James Blake was a hard man to surprise, but when Carter burst into the room unannounced, clutching a printout of the article, James looked genuinely startled. "What's this?" James asked, frowning as Carter slammed the paper on the desk. "It says here that Elon used to support a community center," Carter said, his voice shaking slightly. "Is that where you knew him?" James stared at the paper for a long moment before nodding. "Yes," he said quietly. "It's where we grew up. That community center was all we had back then. It kept us off the streets, gave us something to believe in. But even then, Elon was different. He wasn't like the rest of us, scrambling to get ahead. He just cared about everyone." Carter swallowed hard. "Why did you stop talking to him? If he meant so much to you, why didn't you stay in touch?" James leaned back in his chair, his expression pained. "Because I was ashamed," he admitted. "I left that life behind, Carter. I climbed the ladder, made my fortune, and told myself I'd never look back. But Elon, he didn't care about climbing. He stayed true to who he was. And I couldn't face him, knowing I'd turned my back on everything we once stood for." The honesty in his father's voice hit Carter like a tidal wave. He'd never seen James so vulnerable. For the first time, he saw the man beneath the armor, the one who had once been just another kid trying to make it through life. "I want to find him," Carter said suddenly. James looked up sharply. "What?" I need to find him, Carter repeated, his voice steady. I need to talk to him. Not just for me. For you too. James's jaw tightened, and for a moment, Carter thought he was going to refuse. But then his father sighed, the weight of years of regret etched on his face. If that's what you want, I won't stop you. But finding Elon isn't going to be easy. He doesn't stay in one place for long. Carter nodded, determination burning in his chest. I'll figure it out. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Carter reached out to anyone who might know where Elon was, showroom staff, journalists, even fans online. Slowly, he pieced together a trail that led him to a quiet town in Texas where Elon was rumored to own a small ranch. When Carter arrived, the town felt worlds away from the glitz and glamour of Beverly Hills. It was simple, peaceful, surrounded by endless plains and open skies. He parked his car near a diner and asked around, describing Elon as best as he could. Eventually, an elderly woman pointed him toward a dirt road that led out to the countryside. He goes out there a lot, she said. Likes the quiet, I guess. Carter thanked her and set off, his heart pounding with anticipation. The road was long and winding, cutting through fields of wildflowers and grazing cattle. Just as doubt began to creep in, he spotted a modest ranch house nestled in the distance. As he approached, he saw a figure sitting on the porch, a cup of coffee in hand. It was Elon. Carter froze, suddenly unsure of what to say. But then Elon looked up, his eyes meeting Carter's, and a small smile crossed his face. I was wondering when you'd show up, Elon said, his voice warm but knowing. How did you know? Carter stammered. Elon shrugged. Your dad and I go way back. And you, well, you reminded me of him. The way he used to be. Carter felt his throat tighten. I don't want to be that person anymore, he admitted, his voice breaking. I want to be better. Elon's gaze softened, and he gestured toward the empty chair beside him. Then sit down. Let's talk. Elon Musk gestured for Carter to sit beside him. Then let's talk. As the sun dipped below the trees, Carter began to tell his story, not knowing that this conversation would change his life forever. Carter sat down hesitantly, the rough wood of the porch creaking under him. Elon handed him a cup of coffee without saying a word, his quiet presence both intimidating and comforting. For a moment, they sat in silence, the sounds of nature filling the air. Carter wasn't used to silence like this. It wasn't awkward, but it demanded honesty. I don't know where to start, Carter admitted, staring down at the coffee in his hands. Elon leaned back, his calm demeanor unwavering. Start with the truth. Whatever is in your heart. Carter swallowed hard. I've spent my whole life trying to prove something. To my dad. To myself. I thought if I had the best car, the most money, the flashiest life, that I'd matter. But now I don't even know what I'm trying to prove anymore. And when I saw you in that showroom, you weren't like anyone I've ever met. You didn't need to prove anything. You just are. And that's what I want to be. Elon nodded slowly, as if weighing each word. It's easy to lose yourself when you're chasing what the world tells you is important. But what really matters? That's for you to decide. Carter hesitated, then took a deep breath. My dad, he told me about your past. About the community center and how much you meant to him. He said he walked away from all of it because he was ashamed. And now I feel like I've been doing the same thing. Pushing people away. Focusing on the wrong things. I don't want to be like that anymore. Elon's expression softened, and for the first time, Carter saw a flicker of emotion behind his calm exterior. Your father and I were like brothers back then, Elon said quietly. We grew up with nothing, but we had each other. And then he left. At first, I was angry. But as time went on, I realized he was just scared. Scared of failing. Scared of not being enough. It's something we all face, Carter. Even me. You? Carter asked, surprised. Elon smiled faintly. Of course. I've made mistakes. Lost people I loved. Struggled with things money or fame could never fix. But I learned that the only way to move forward is to face those fears and take responsibility for the life you want to live. Carter felt a lump rise in his throat. I don't even know where to start, he admitted. Elon placed a hand on his shoulder, his touch steady and reassuring. Start by forgiving yourself. Then go back and make things right with the people who matter. It's not about the cars or the money. It's about showing up, being present, and choosing kindness every day. The rest will follow. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Carter felt a sense of clarity he hadn't experienced in years. He knew this moment would stay with him forever. The next morning, Carter returned home, his heart lighter but filled with determination. He found his father in the study, sitting at his desk with a photo in his hands. It was old and faded, but Carter recognized Elon instantly. They were young, smiling, standing in front of a small brick building. I need to fix things, James said without looking up, his voice unsteady. Carter sat down across from him. Then let's do it together. Over the next few weeks, father and son worked to rebuild the connection they had both neglected for so long. James reached out to old friends, including those he'd left behind in his pursuit of success. Carter began volunteering at local shelters and community centers, finding purpose in helping others. One day, as they stood in front of a group of children at a renovated community center, James spoke openly about his journey, about his mistakes, his regrets, and his newfound hope. Elon stood in the back of the room, watching with quiet pride as his old friend found his voice again. Afterward, the three of them shared a simple meal together, laughing and reminiscing. Carter realized that happiness wasn't found in things. It was found in moments like this. As the sun set on their reunion, Carter knew he had finally found what he'd been searching for all along, a life that mattered, built on love, kindness, and the courage to change.